I was just dropping off vegetables at my daughter's house. I wasn't supposed to be there. But when I saw my wife's Mercedes hidden down the street, I knew something was wrong. I crept to the window, and what I heard my wife of 45 years, Serafina, and my son-in-law Trevor planning my murder. They were discussing how to increase my medication, how to make me seem confused, how to get my money. I didn't confront them. I didn't break down the door. I walked away. I got in my old truck and I made one phone call. That call started the clock on the end of their lives as they knew it. Before I tell you what happens next, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. Hit like and subscribe if you believe that justice should always be served no matter who the culprit is. My name is Amos Turner. I'm 73 years old. When you live this long, you learn to appreciate the quiet things. Silence isn't empty to me. It's full of observations. My old 98 Ford F-150 might rattle, but it's honest, like me. I spent my whole life in New York working a steady, boring desk job for the city. That's what I told my family anyway. My wife, Serafina, she always wanted more than that. She wanted the big houses, the shiny cars, the country club life she saw on television. I gave her what I could. A good home in Queens, a fine daughter Naya, a comfortable retirement. But for Sarah, comfortable was never enough. I thought retirement would bring us peace. I built a small garden in our backyard, growing tomatoes, lettuces, collard greens. That's my speed now. It keeps my hands busy and my mind clear. I find more truth in the soil than I ever found in the city. I thought my days of hunting for predators were long over. I was wrong. The predators were just closer to home. It was a Tuesday. Just a regular Tuesday. I'd harvested a box of the best-looking tomatoes and some kale. Nia loved my kale. I loaded them into the old Ford. The engine turned over with a groan, but she always starts. I drove over to my daughter's neighborhood in Westchester. A nice area, clean streets, big trees. Maybe a little too new money for my taste, but Nia liked it. Her husband Trevor loved it. Trevor, he's a different story. A fast-talking white-collar guy who calls himself a financial consultant. He smells like expensive cologne and empty promises. I never liked him, but Nia seemed happy, so I kept my mouth shut. I turned onto her street, and that's when my chest tightened. It wasn't a heart problem, it was an old instinct. A flicker of silver tucked behind a row of overgrown hedges. A Mercedes C-Class. I knew that car. I paid the down payment on it. It was my wife's. Now you might be asking what's wrong with a woman visiting her daughter. Nothing, except my wife wasn't supposed to be here. That very morning, not 5 hours ago, Serafina kissed me goodbye. She was wearing her best church hat. "Amos, honey, I'm off to the Sisterhood Spiritual Retreat," she'd said. "It's all the way upstate. I won't be back until late tonight. Don't wait up for me." 2 hours upstate, but here was her car right here in Westchester. And there was another thing. My daughter Nia was at work. I knew her schedule better than my own. She's a nurse practitioner. On Tuesdays, she works a 12-hour shift at the hospital. She wouldn't be home until at least 5 p.m. It was barely noon, so the question hung in the air thick and heavy. Why was my wife, who was supposed to be at a church retreat at my son-in-law's house when my daughter, his wife, was nowhere near, my mind started running through the possibilities. An emergency. She would have called me. A surprise Sarah wasn't the surprise visit type. The only remaining answer was the one I didn't want to look at, the one that made my stomach turn sour. The old training kicked in, 30 years of it. It never really leaves you. You don't call, you don't knock, you don't announce your presence, you observe. I didn't slow down. I drove right past the house, casual, just an old man in an old truck. I drove 2 blocks down, turned the corner, and parked where I couldn't be seen from their window. I cut the engine. The rattle stopped and the silence was deafening. I got out of the truck, leaving the vegetables on the seat. This wasn't a social visit anymore. I walked back, staying on the opposite side of the street. I moved like I used to move. Not like a 73-year-old with a bad knee, but like a detective on a stakeout. Slow, deliberate. My eyes scanned everything. The street was empty. No gardeners, no neighbors walking their dogs. Just me. I crossed the street 2 houses down and slipped into the narrow alley that ran alongside Trevor and Nia's property. I knew this house. I'd helped them move in. I knew the fence had a loose panel just behind the air conditioning unit. It was still loose. I slipped through it, my heart pounding a low, steady beat against my ribs. I was in their backyard. The grass was too long. Trevor never did yard work. I moved low and quiet along the side of the house until I reached the living room window. Just as I remembered, it was cracked open an inch to let the air in. And that's when I heard it. Laughter. Not just any laughter. It was my wife Serafina, and she wasn't alone. I moved slow. My feet were silent on the overgrown grass. The backyard was quiet. Too quiet. A neglected lawn chair sat tipped over by the patio. I pressed my back flat against the vinyl siding of the house. The window was right there, just above my head, cracked open an inch. I angled myself, listening. The air was still. And then I heard it. A sound that had no business being in that house in the middle of a Tuesday. It was my wife's laughter. A light girlish giggle. A sound I hadn't heard in years. It was followed by Trevor's low, smooth voice. They weren't arguing. They weren't discussing an emergency. They were comfortable. They were relaxed. I edged closer until my ear was just inches from the opening. The smell of stale coffee and something sweet, maybe Trevor's cologne, drifted out. "You worry too much, Sarah," Trevor said. His voice was like oil on glass. "The old man isn't going to find out. He believes every word you say." My wife giggled again. "I'm not worried about him," Serafina replied. And the way she said him, it was like spitting something distasteful out of her mouth. "Amos is too busy playing in his dirt pile talking to his tomatoes. He's checked out. I'm worried about Nia." "What about Nia?" Trevor asked. "If she finds out we're dipping into her trust fund..." I froze. I stopped breathing. Her trust fund. My mind flashed back 10 years. Me sitting in a lawyer's office downtown signing the papers. I had set aside $500,000 for my own savings. A nest egg for my daughter Nia. I had worked hard for that money, squirreled it away for decades. The terms were clear. Nia couldn't touch it until she was 45 or until I passed away. It was my protection for her. My final gift. And in that lawyer's office, I had made the biggest mistake of my life. I had made her new husband, Trevor Hayes, the trustee. I thought it would make him feel respected, responsible. I thought it would make him a better man. I was a fool. Inside the house, Trevor laughed. A short, arrogant bark. "It's not dipping, baby. It's reinvesting. I told you. We borrow from the old man's money. We put it into the Bahamas project. We triple it. Then we slide the original amount right back into Nia's fund before she's even old enough to check the balance. Everybody wins." Serafina sighed. It was a long, dramatic sound, the kind she used when she felt put upon. "I just wish he'd hurry up a little," she said. Her voice was quiet, almost a whisper. "What do you mean?" Trevor asked. "I mean, he's 73, Trev. He's lived his life. His doctor keeps saying he's healthy as a horse. He's just lingering. He's living too long." The world tilted. My vision blurred for a second. This wasn't just about money anymore. This was my wife. The woman I had slept next to for 45 years, the mother of my child. She was sitting in my son-in-law's house, impatient for my death. Trevor's voice dropped. It became a low, conspiratorial hiss. "If he won't hurry up," he said, "then we might have to accelerate the process." "What are you talking about?" Sarah asked. "I've already had the papers drawn up," Trevor said. "Full power of attorney. Citing his failing health, it gives you his loving wife control over all his assets." "He'll never sign that," Sarah snapped. "He's old. Amos is not stupid." "He will," Trevor said, his voice terrifyingly calm. "He will if he thinks he's signing something else, or he will if he's not clear-headed enough to read it." A long pause. I could hear a spoon clinking against a coffee cup. "What do you mean, not clear-headed?" Sarah asked. "His blood pressure medication," Trevor whispered. "We just up the dosage. Just a little. He gets confused, dizzy. We call the doctor. The doctor says he's had a small stroke, that he's not competent. And then you, his devoted wife, step in to manage his affairs. It's clean. It's simple." I didn't hear any more. I didn't need to. I pressed my hand against the brick wall to steady myself. My wife and my son-in-law weren't just thieves. They were planning to murder me. I didn't break the window. I didn't kick down the door. I didn't scream my wife's name. The rage I felt was not the hot, explosive kind that makes you break things. It was cold. It was the kind of cold that settles deep in your bones, the kind that sharpens your mind, clarifies every shadow. It was the anger of a hunter who has just spotted his prey. And I knew in that quiet, sunlit backyard that I was the hunter, and they were the prey. I backed away from the window. My feet made no sound on the overgrown grass. Every movement was deliberate. I slipped back through the loose fence panel, my knee barely making a sound as I straightened up. I walked down the alley, my posture straight. I did not run. I walked back to my truck, my keys already in my hand. I got in. I put the key in the ignition and turned it. The old engine groaned to life, a familiar, honest sound. I pulled away from the curb, checked my mirrors, and drove away. Just an old man in an old truck leaving his daughter's neighborhood. No one who saw me would have known that the man driving that truck had just heard his own death sentence being planned. No one would have known that I was not running away. I was going to war. Serafina and Trevor made a fatal mistake. They looked at me and they saw exactly what I had spent the last 15 years showing them. They saw Amos Turner, the simple retiree, the old man who worked a desk job for the city sanitation department for 40 years, the harmless grandfather who was obsessed with his tomato plants, the fool who was too busy playing in his dirt pile to notice what was happening. That was the lie. That was the cover story. The identity I had carefully built piece by piece to protect my family. I never worked for sanitation. I never had a simple desk job. My name is Detective First Grade Amos Turner, retired, New York Police Department, my unit, Financial Crimes. For 30 years, I didn't just push papers. I hunted sharks. I tracked multi-million-dollar fraud cases across international borders. I brought down white-collar criminals who thought they were smarter than God. Men exactly like Trevor Hayes. I have sat across interrogation tables from killers, con artists, and sociopaths who could lie without blinking. I learned to see the cracks in their stories. I learned to read the greed in their eyes long before they ever spoke a word. I built that cover story for a reason. When you put away dangerous men, you make dangerous enemies. I didn't want my family looking over their shoulder. I didn't want Nia or Sarah to be targets. So when I retired, I became Amos the Simple Man. I bought the old truck. I lived in the modest house in Queens. I wore the worn-out flannel shirts. I buried the detective deep inside me. I did it to protect them. The irony is so thick I could choke on it. I spent my entire career protecting my family from the monsters outside, only to find out the real monsters were sleeping in my bed and eating at my table. But now the detective was awake, and he was furious. As I drove, my mind was already running calculations. I could not just walk into the nearest precinct. What would I say? My wife and my son-in-law are trying to kill me. I heard them planning it through a window. Trevor had already planned for that. He was already building the narrative. He's confused. He's getting senile. He's having small strokes. If I went to the police without proof, I would be playing right into their hands. They would have me evaluated. They would have me declared incompetent. They would win. No, I could not use their system. I had to use mine. I needed evidence. Hard, undeniable, irrefutable proof. I drove to a payphone at an old gas station on the boulevard. I didn't use my cell phone. I didn't want a digital trace. I picked up the heavy plastic receiver, the cold metal pressed against my ear, and I dialed a number I knew by heart. It rang twice. A gravelly voice answered. "Yeah." "Mac, it's Amos." There was a pause on the other end. "Amos Turner." "Well, I'll be damned. I thought you were dead or planting tomatoes. It's been, 10 years? Marcus Mac Reynolds, my old partner. The best surveillance man the department ever had. He retired a year after me and opened his own private investigations firm. I need a favor, Mac. The biggest one I've ever asked for." Mac's voice changed. The joking tone was gone. "What is it?" "I need eyes. I need ears. I need a 24/7 tail on my son-in-law Trevor Hayes and on my wife Serafina." Another pause. Longer this time. "Sarah Amos, what the hell is going on?" "I think they're trying to kill me, Mac." I didn't have to say anything else. We were partners. That bond does not break. "Where are you?" he asked. "The old diner, on Hillside and Parsons." "I'll be there in 20 minutes, Mac said. "Don't talk to anyone. And Amos, watch your back, especially at home." He hung up. I put the receiver down. The game had started. I got home hours before her. The house was quiet, but the silence was different now. It wasn't my peaceful, comfortable silence. It was the silence of a tomb. Every object I looked at seemed like a lie. The wedding photo on the mantel, a smiling young and full of promise. The armchair she always sat in to read her magazines. The smell of the potpourri she kept by the door. It was all a performance. A 45-year performance. I sat in the kitchen in the dark, and I waited. I was a detective again, waiting for the suspect to return to the scene of the crime. My home. At 10:30, I heard her key in the lock. The door opened and closed softly. "Amos," she called out, her voice full of fake exhaustion. "Honey, I'm home. That retreat was so draining." I turned on the small kitchen lamp. I was sitting at the table. "Hey, Sarah, you're back late." She flinched, not expecting to see me sitting there in the dim light. She recovered quickly, putting on that mask of wifely concern. "Oh, Amos, you startled me. Why are you sitting in the dark? Are you feeling all right?" She came over and put her cold hand on my forehead. I had to fight the urge to pull away. "I've been feeling a little off all evening," I lied. "A little dizzy." Her eyes sharpened, just for a fraction of a second. "Dizzy, oh honey, that's not good. Did you take your blood pressure medication?" I rubbed my temples, putting on the act. "No, I was waiting. I don't know, I just felt strange." "Oh, Amos, you shouldn't wait," she scolded, her voice dripping with manufactured care. "You know what the doctor said. You have to be consistent." She bustled over to the cabinet, pulled out my pill bottle, and shook one into her palm. She filled a glass with water from the tap. She walked back over to me, holding the small white pill and the glass like they were a sacrament. "Here, baby. Take this. You'll feel better in the morning." This was it, the moment of truth. My hand trembled as I reached for the glass, and this time the tremor wasn't entirely an act. My fingers felt clumsy. "I just feel so weak," I murmured. I know. Just take the pill," she urged, pushing it toward my hand. I took the small pill from her. I looked at it, a simple, chalky white pill, a little helper to accelerate the process. I brought it to my mouth along with the glass of water. I put the pill under my tongue. I took a large gulp of water, swallowed noisily, and let out a shaky breath. "Okay," I said. "It's done." Sarah smiled, her eyes full of, "What was it, relief?" "Good. That's good. Now you should get to bed." She turned her back to me to put the glass in the sink. In that split second, I spit the wet, partially dissolved pill into my hand, shoving it deep into my pocket. It felt like holding a small, cold piece of death. "I'll be there in a minute," I said. She turned back around, wiping her hands on a dish towel. She sat down across from me, her expression serious and loving. It was a masterful performance. "Amos," she began, her voice soft. "I was thinking on the drive home, and Trevor and I were talking the other day." 8. Here it comes, I thought. "We're worried about you, honey, especially now that you're feeling dizzy and weak. What if something happens to you when I'm not here? What if you fall?" I just looked at her, playing the part of the confused, aging husband. "What are you saying, Sarah?" "Trevor thinks it would be a good idea for us to get some paperwork in order," she said, reaching across the table to pat my hand. "You know, just legal precautions, a power of attorney for your medical decisions, just so I can make sure you're taken care of, so I can talk to the doctors if you can't." I let the silence hang for a moment. I looked down at our hands, hers soft and manicured, resting on my calloused, wrinkled one, the hand that was trying to kill me. "You know," I said, my voice intentionally weak. "You're right. That's a good idea." I saw her tense, trying not to show her surprise that I agreed so easily. I've been feeling my age lately." I continued, selling the lie. "I've been thinking about the will, too. I want to update it. I need to make sure you and Nia are completely taken care of, that everything is simple for you when the time comes." And there it was. It wasn't just a flicker. It was a bonfire. Her eyes lit up. It was a quick, sharp flash of pure, unadulterated greed. It was the look of a predator that has just been told the prey will walk right into the trap. She quickly masked it with fake tears welling in her eyes. "Oh, Amos, don't talk like that," she whispered, squeezing my hand. "But you're right. It's smart to have everything in order. Trevor has some papers he can bring by. He'll handle everything. You won't have to worry about a thing." "Good," I said, slumping my shoulders as if I was exhausted. "That's good. I trust Trevor. He's a smart boy. He'll be so glad to help, honey. I'll call him right now and tell him you've agreed." She stood up a little too quickly. "Now you get to bed. I'll be right there." I nodded and slowly shuffled off to the bedroom. I knew she wasn't going to bed. I knew she was going to call her partner in crime. I knew she was going to tell him that the old fool had not only agreed to the power of attorney, but he had mentioned the will. The fish had not just nibbled the bait. He had swallowed the hook, the line, and the sinker. I knew as I closed my bedroom door that they would act fast now, and that was exactly what I wanted. I took the damp, crumbling pill out of my pocket and placed it carefully in a small plastic bag. Exhibit A. The next morning, I moved like a ghost in my own house. Serafina was in the kitchen humming as she made coffee, the picture of a happy, devoted wife. The sight of her so normal and so monstrous at the same time made my stomach clench. "Morning, honey," she chirped. "Sleep well." "Like a stone," I lied. I told her I was going to the hardware store. I needed more supplies for my tomatoes. She smiled. "Don't overdo it, Amos." I just nodded. I drove the F-150, but I didn't go to the hardware store. I went to a small coffee shop in Jamaica. Mac was in a booth in the back, his face hidden behind a newspaper, just like in the old days. I slid in across from him. I didn't order anything. I reached into my pocket and slid the small, damp plastic bag across the Formica table. "Exhibit A," I said, my voice low. Mac didn't look up from his paper. His hand came out, expertly palmed the bag and slipped it into his jacket pocket. "I'll have the lab rush this. You'll hear from me by tonight." "Good," I said. "Now I need you to dig into Trevor Hayes. Dig deep, Mac. Dig until you hit bedrock. I want to know where he buys his socks." Mac folded his paper and finally looked at me. His eyes were tired but sharp. "He's that dirty." "He's dirtier than that," I said. The call came at 6 o'clock that evening. I was in my shed, the small, quiet space that used to be my sanctuary. I was sharpening my garden shears when my burner phone, the one Sarah didn't know about, vibrated in my pocket. I answered. "Amos? Talk to me. The lab results are back." Mac's voice was gravelly, angrier than I'd heard it in years. "That little white pill wasn't your normal prescription." I stopped the motion of the sharpening stone. The shed went silent. "What was it?" "It's a beta blocker, all right, but the dosage is high enough to stop a horse's heart. And that's not the worst of it. It was compounded. It was mixed with a powerful anticoagulant, a blood thinner." I closed my eyes. I knew exactly what that combination was designed to do. "It's a slow-motion heart attack, Amos," Mac said, his voice hard. "They're not trying to kill you in one night. They're trying to build up a condition. You'd get weaker, dizzier, more confused, just like they said. One day your heart just stops. Or you bleed out internally from a minor stroke. The coroner would sign off on natural causes before his coffee got cold. It's murder disguised as old age." "They are trying to erase me," I whispered. "Yeah," Mac said. "They are. And Amos..." I started digging on Trevor Hayes. "You were right. The guy is filth." "What did you find?" I asked. My grip was so tight on the shears my knuckles were white. "First off, he's no financial consultant. His license to practice lapsed 3 years ago. He's got a string of failed LLCs registered to P.O. boxes all over Delaware. But that's not even the good part." Mac took a breath. "The Bahamas project he's been feeding your wife. It doesn't exist. It's a shell company he set up himself. He's not an investor, Amos. He's a gambler, and he's a bad one." A gambler. The word hit me like a physical blow. Atlantic City, the Borgata Caesars. He's in deep. My contacts at the commission say he's been burning through money he doesn't have. He owes over $200,000 to some very unpleasant people who don't send polite reminder letters. It all clicked into place. The pressure, the hurry. This wasn't just greed. This was desperation. Trevor wasn't trying to get rich. He was trying to stay alive. "He's using my wife," I said, thinking aloud. "He's using her to get to my money so he can pay off his sharks." "It looks that way," Mac agreed. "He's been feeding her some fantasy about tripling her investment, making her the rich woman she always wanted to be. He's playing her like a fiddle." I thought of Sarah, my wife of 45 years, so desperate for a life she didn't have that she was willing to murder the man who gave her the life she did have, and all for a con man who was just using her as a tool. "She's a fool," I muttered. "She's a co-conspirator, Amos." Mac corrected me, his voice firm. "Don't forget that, but it gets worse." "What is worse than that, Mac?" "The trust fund, the one you set up for your daughter, Naya." My blood ran cold. "What about it?" "He's already hit it. I pulled the statements. $150,000 withdrawn 6 weeks ago." "That's impossible," I said, my voice shaking for the first time. "It requires 2 signatures. His as the trustee and Nia's as the beneficiary for any early withdrawal. He forged her signature, Amos, Max said flatly. We ran the withdrawal slip past a document specialist. It's a good forgery, but it's not her handwriting. He cleaned out nearly a third of your daughter's inheritance. The garden shears fell from my hand and clattered onto the workbench. He stole from Nia. He stole from my little girl. The whole ugly, heartbreaking picture snapped into focus. It was so clear now. Trevor is a rat in a trap. He stole from Nia first, probably to cover an old gambling debt, thinking he could win it back. He lost it all. Now the new debts are piling up the $200,000. He's out of time. He can't steal any more from Nia's trust without her finding out, so he needs a new source of cash, a big one, fast. He turns to my wife. He seduces her. He finds out about me, the old man, with a house and a pension. He promises her the world. He convinces Sarah that I am the obstacle, that my death will solve all their problems. I realize the horrifying truth. Sarah, my wife, she's just another pawn on his board. He's using her to get my money. Once I'm dead and my assets are legally in Sarah's name, he'll take that too. He'll pay his debts, and then he'll disappear. He'll leave them both. He'll leave Sarah, his accomplice, and Nia, his wife, with nothing. He's not just robbing me. He's planning to destroy my entire family one by one. Amos. You still there? Mac asked. I took a deep, ragged breath. I'm here, I said, my voice a low growl I hadn't heard in 15 years. I need you to find everything, Mac. Every bank account, every fake LLC, every phone call. I'm done being the old man in the garden. It's time to remind these people exactly who I am. My anger at Serafina and Trevor was a cold, hard stone in my gut. But the feeling I had for my daughter, Nia, was different. It was a sharp, aching panic. She was not just a pawn in their game. She was the other victim. Trevor had already stolen from her. He was married to her. He was sleeping next to her every night. She was in a house with a man who was actively conspiring to murder her father. She was in danger. I had to try. Even if I failed, I had to try to warn her. I could not just sit by and let him destroy her life before he finished destroying mine. I called her at the hospital where she worked as a nurse practitioner. Her voice was bright, cheerful, full of life. Hi, Daddy. What's up? That sound, that innocence, it nearly broke my heart. Hey, Pumpkin, I said, trying to keep my voice even. I had to force the old nickname out. I know you're busy, but I was wondering if your old man could buy you lunch tomorrow. Just us. I miss you. She hesitated. I could hear the calculation in the pause. I could almost hear Trevor's voice in her head warning her against me. Oh, Daddy, I'm so swamped, she said. Can't Trevor and Mom come too? We could make it a family dinner. No, I said, maybe a little too firmly. Just you. Please, Nia. It's important. She finally agreed, though her voice was noticeably cooler. Okay. Just for an hour. The diner near the hospital, 12:30. I hung up the phone. The first step was done, but the hardest part was yet to come. How do you tell your child that the man she loves is a monster? How do you tell her that her mother is one too? The diner was noisy. The smell of old coffee and fried food hung in the air. It was neutral ground. I was there first in a booth by the window, just like I had been with Mac. I watched Nia walk in. She looked beautiful. She had her mother's high cheekbones, but my steady eyes, or at least they used to be my steady eyes. Today they were guarded. She slid into the booth and gave me a quick, tight smile. Hi, Daddy. What's so important? Is everything okay with your tomatoes? The waitress came over. We ordered 2 black coffees, a tuna melt for her, a simple grilled cheese for me. I did not waste time with small talk. I could not. Nia, I started. I need to ask you something, and I need you to just listen. Don't react. Just listen. Are you happy? Are you really truly happy with Trevor? Her face shut down immediately. The light in her eyes vanished, replaced by a cold, flat defensiveness. Dad, please don't do this. I told you on the phone I'm busy. I don't have time for one of your lectures. That's not an answer, Nia. Yes, I'm happy, she said, her voice tight. I'm very happy. Trevor is a wonderful husband. He's supportive, he's smart, and he's building a future for us, something you never seem to want to do. That stung. What's that supposed to mean? It means she said, leaning forward, her voice dropping to an angry whisper. It means that you were always happy in your small house with your small job and your small life. I want more than that. Trevor wants more than that. Is that so wrong? There's nothing wrong with wanting more, I said slowly. But it depends on how you get it. Nia, do you trust him? I mean with your finances. She laughed. It was a short, bitter sound that did not belong to her. My finances. What finances, Dad? My salary as a nurse. I trust him completely. He manages everything. He's a professional. He's helping us invest, helping us grow. He's even helping Mom with her money. He's brilliant. That was the opening. I had to take it. Speaking of that trust fund I set up for you, the $500,000. Have you looked at the statements for that recently? The reaction was instant. It was violent. She did not just get defensive, she got angry. What? She snapped. Her voice was loud enough to make the man in the next booth look up. Why in the world would you ask me that? What are you trying to say? I'm just asking, Pumpkin. It's your money. You should... It's not my money. She cut me off, her eyes flashing with a fury I had not seen since she was a teenager. It's our money. Trevor and I are married, and no, I don't check the statements. Why would I? Because I trust my husband. What are you implying, Dad? That Trevor, my husband, is stealing from me? I held her gaze. I did not say yes, I did not have to. My silence was the answer. She recoiled as if I had slapped her. Oh my God, she whispered. I can't believe you. I cannot believe you would sink this low. Nia, just listen to me. I have reason to believe. No, she shouted, and this time everyone in the diner looked. You listen to me. I knew this was a bad idea. I knew you were going to do this. You have never liked him from the very first day I brought him home. You've always been jealous of him. Jealous of what? I was stunned. That he's smarter than you, that he's more successful than you, that he's not content to just plant vegetables and wait to die. You can't stand that. I love a man who is bigger than your tiny little world. The food arrived. The waitress, a young girl with wide eyes, awkwardly placed the plates on the table and hurried away. Neither of us touched our food. Nia, that is not true, I said, my voice pained. I'm trying to protect you. Protect me. She laughed again, that same horrifying, humorless laugh. You're trying to ruin my marriage. That's what you're doing. You're a bitter, lonely old man, and you can't stand to see me happy. I trust my husband more than I trust you, Dad. Do you hear me? I trust Trevor with my life. He is a good man, and you are just trying to poison me against him. She grabbed her purse and slid out of the booth. The tears streaming down her face were not tears of sadness. They were tears of rage. Don't call me again, she spat, her voice shaking. Don't call me unless you are ready to apologize to him. She threw a $20 bill on the table. For the coffee, she said, and she stormed out of the diner. I sat there. My grilled cheese was getting cold. My coffee was bitter. I watched her walk away, her back rigid with indignation. I watched her get into the car that Trevor had probably bought with her own stolen money, and I felt a profound, bottomless sadness. It was not just that I had failed to warn her, it was that I had lost her. She was gone. He had her. His manipulation ran so deep that she would believe his lies over my truth. She would defend the man trying to kill me. I paid the bill and walked out. I knew now I could not save Nia with words. The only way to save her was to destroy the man she loved. I waited 2 days. 2 days of listening to Seraphina's fake concern. Amos, you are not eating. Amos, you look so pale, honey. 2 days of me dutifully palming the poisoned pills she handed me, collecting them in the plastic bag, adding them to the first one. My performance had to be perfect. After the disastrous lunch with Nia, I had the perfect excuse. I was not just old and dizzy. I was a broken man. On Wednesday night, I made my move. I did not call her on her cell. I waited in the dark of the living room, slouched in my armchair. I picked up the old landline phone, the one we barely used, and dialed her cell. I heard it ring in the bedroom. She picked up. Amos, what is it? You're in the next room. I let my voice crack. I made it sound dry papery. Sarah, I whispered. Sarah, I think you're right. I think I am in trouble. I heard a rustling and she was at the bedroom door peering into the dark. What do you mean, honey? What's wrong? I'm not well, I said, rubbing my temples. I've been dizzy all day, ever since I saw Nia. She hates me, Sarah. She said I was trying to ruin her marriage. She said I was a lonely, bitter old man. I let my voice break just a little. I think she's right. I'm just confused. I need help. I need you to help me. I heard her sharp intake of breath. It was the sound of a predator smelling blood in the water. She rushed over and knelt by my chair, her face a perfect mask of loving concern. "Oh, Amos," she cooed. "Of course, baby. I'm here. I'll always be here to take care of you. Nia is just stressed." She did not mean it. "Those papers," I said, as if the thought just struck me. "The ones Trevor mentioned. The power of attorney. We should sign them. I'm just so tired of fighting Sarah. I want you to handle things." I watched her. I watched her pupils dilate. I watched her fight back a smile. "Oh, Amos," she whispered. "And the will," I added, delivering the final fatal bait. "I want to update the will. I want to make sure you and Nia are completely taken care of properly. I want to make it simple for you when the time comes." The silence that followed was electric. I could practically hear the numbers clicking in her head. She squeezed my hand, her own hand trembling slightly with excitement. "Amos," she said, her voice thick with fake emotion. "That's the wisest thing. That is the right thing to do. You just rest. I'll call Trevor. We'll handle everything. He can bring the papers on Friday. You won't have to worry about a single thing." I nodded, slumping my shoulders as if exhausted. "Good. That's good. I trust Trevor. He's a smart boy. He'll know what to do. He'll be so glad to help, honey. I'll call him right now and tell him you've agreed." She stood up a little too quickly. "Now you get to bed. I'll be right there." I nodded and slowly, painfully shuffled off to the bedroom. I knew she was not coming to bed. I knew exactly what she was going to do. I closed my bedroom door but did not get into bed. I stood in the dark listening, and I heard it. Her voice from the kitchen, a low, excited hiss muffled by the wall. "Trevor. It's me. He's in. He's completely in. He's caving. He's even bringing up the will himself. Yes, Friday. It's done." The fish had not just nibbled the bait. He had swallowed the hook, the line, and the sinker. I waited 10 minutes. Then I walked to my shed, the one place she never entered. I picked up my clean burner phone and dialed a number in Manhattan. The voice on the other end was not gravelly like Max. It was sharp, precise, and expensive. "Ben Carter speaking." "Ben, it's Amos Turner. It's time." "Amos," Ben said, his tone immediately all business. "I was wondering when you'd call. How bad is it?" "They are planning to sign a fraudulent power of attorney on Friday. They are also actively poisoning me. I have the pills. Mac has the lab reports." Ben let out a long, slow whistle. "Okay, what's the play?" "The trap is set," I said. "This Friday, 11 a.m., my house. They are bringing their fraudulent documents. I need you to bring your real ones." "What real ones?" Ben asked. "My updated will, the one that disinherits Serafina Turner completely, the one that puts my entire estate into a protected trust for Nia managed by you. And I need you to bring a notary you trust." "Done," Ben said. "That's simple enough." "I'm not finished," I said. "I'm bringing them in for a signing, but I want to end this. I want you to call your friends, the ones at the SEC and the IRS. Tell them I'm serving up a high-level fraud case on a silver platter. I want them here, at my house, on Friday. I'm handing them a gift." Ben was quiet for a second. "Amos, the feds. For a family dispute, that's heavy artillery. Are you sure Trevor Hayes is a big enough fish for them to show up in person?" I looked out the shed window at my garden, at the modest house I had lived in for 45 years, at the old truck in the driveway. "Ben," I said, "you've handled my modest accounts for 15 years. You've helped me manage the desk jockey's pension. You've always respected my privacy. Now I need to tell you why I hired you. Why I really hired you." "I'm listening." "That desk job was a cover. My real retirement. Well, it has not been retirement. For the last 15 years, I have been a private consultant, corporate security, financial forensics, for some of the biggest banks in the world. the ones who can't go to the police when they suspect one of their own. Ben was silent. Amos, what are you saying? I'm saying I said that the $500,000 trust fund for Nia, that was just for show. That was decoy money. My real portfolio, the one Sarah doesn't know about, the one I built consulting, is currently valued at $8.4 million. The silence on Ben's end was profound. And Trevor Hayes, I continued, made the mistake of not only trying to poison me for my house, but he's been laundering his gambling money through shell corporations I can trace in my sleep. So when you call the feds, you tell them Amos Turner has them, and he's ready to make a statement. Friday morning, 11 o'clock on the dot. The sun was streaming into my living room, lighting up the dust motes that danced in the air. It was a beautiful day for an execution. I sat in my old armchair, wearing my most worn-out flannel robe, a thick blanket draped over my knees. I was playing the part of the frail, confused old man they expected me to be. I heard their car pull up, the low, expensive purr of Trevor's engine, a sound so different from the honest rattle of my old truck. A few moments later, I heard a key in the lock. My key, the key I gave Serafina. She pushed the door open, her voice bright and sickeningly sweet. Amos, honey, we're here. Trevor and I are here to help you with those papers. She walked in first. She was practically vibrating with a nervous, greedy energy. She looked like a vulture who had been told the lion was finally leaving the carcass. Trevor was right behind her, carrying a sleek black leather briefcase. He looked impatient, predatory. And then I saw my daughter, Naya. She was trailing behind them, shuffling her feet, her eyes fixed on the floor. My heart ached when I saw her. She looked pale, drawn, and deeply uncomfortable. "Hi, Daddy," she mumbled, not making eye contact. They had forced her to come. They were using her, my own daughter, as a witness. They wanted to wrap their betrayal in the blanket of a loving family decision. "Amos, look, Trevor is here just like we promised," Sarah said, gesturing to him as he sat on my sofa. He placed his briefcase on my old coffee table. The sound of the expensive leather hitting the worn wood was a dull, heavy thud. It sounded final. Trevor clicked the brass latches on the briefcase, a sharp snick-snick in the quiet room. He pulled out a thick stack of papers bound in a neat blue cover. He slid it across the table toward me. "All right, Amos," he said. His voice was patronizing, the kind you use on a child or a simpleton. "As we discussed, this is the paperwork we need to make sure you're taken care of." I looked at the top sheet. The words were large, bold, and final, durable power of attorney. "This is a comprehensive document, Amos," Trevor continued, his voice smooth as oil. "It's what we call the total package. It gives Serafina, as your loving wife, the full and total authority to manage all your affairs." He tapped the paper. "All financial decisions, all banking, all property transactions, and of course, all your medical directives. This document means that when you are unable to make decisions for yourself, she can step in seamlessly. No courts, no delays. She will have complete control to protect your assets." "Complete control," I repeated. My voice was soft, barely a whisper. "Exactly," Trevor said, his smile widening. He saw me as a finished man. "It's the best way to protect you. All you have to do is sign at the bottom of each page. Naya is here and she can witness the signature." He glanced at Nia, who flinched as if she had been struck. I had to play my part. I had to be the man they wanted me to be. I reached for the papers. I made my hand shake. I let a tremor travel up my arm, a visible sign of my supposed weakness. "Oh my," I said, my voice thin and reedy. That's a lot of pages, Trevor. I don't know." I fumbled in the pocket of my robe. Where did I put my reading glasses?" Serafina, ever the helpful wife, pointed. "They're on your head, Amos." "Oh," I said, laughing a dry, pathetic little laugh. "Oh, right. Silly me. I'd forget my own head if it wasn't screwed on." I pulled the glasses down and squinted at the first page. I held it up close to my face, then held it far away. The print swam before my eyes. The words are so small. All this legal stuff. It's just so confusing. My head it's spinning a little. I looked up at Trevor, my eyes wide and lost. I tried to look as pathetic, as vulnerable as a 73-year-old man can look. Trevor, you're the smart one. You're the financial expert. You just tell me what it says. You tell me where to sign. Trevor leaned back, crossing his legs. He was oozing with condescending charm. He had won. Don't you worry your head about any of it, Amos, he said, patting the stack of papers. It's all just standard legal procedure. Standard boilerplate. It says exactly what I told you. It gives Sarah the power to take care of you. It's a simple formality. He pulled a sleek, expensive-looking gold pen from his jacket pocket and offered it to me butt first. You just sign here, here, and here. I looked at the pen. I looked at his smiling, predatory face. I looked at my wife, her eyes gleaming with anticipation. I looked at my daughter, who was staring at her hands as if they were the most interesting things in the world. I did not take the pen. I let my trembling hand fall back to my lap. You're right, Trevor, I said softly. It is important. It's a very big decision. I took a shaky breath. And because it's so important, I thought it would be best to have a professional look it over. Serafina's smile froze on her face. Trevor's hand, the one holding the pen, stopped midair. A professional? Trevor asked. His voice lost its smoothness. It was suddenly sharp. Amos, I am a professional. There's no need to pay. Oh, I'm not paying him for this, I said, shaking my head. He's an old friend. My lawyer, Ben Carter. I called him this morning. In fact, I looked up at the clock on the mantel. He should be here any minute. I asked him to stop by around 11 just to read the fine print. You don't mind, do you? Just to make sure everything is, as you say, standard procedure. The blood drained from Trevor's face. Serafina looked like she had been struck by lightning. A lawyer, she stammered. Her voice was 2 octaves higher. Amos, you didn't tell me there's no need for a lawyer. We are family. Trevor was already starting to gather the papers, his movements suddenly fast and jerky, a stark contrast to his earlier calm. You know, he said, forcing a laugh, this is really not a good time. We can do this later, Amos, when you're feeling clearer. Nonsense, I said. My voice was suddenly a little stronger. He's already on his way. We wouldn't want to be rude. And right on cue, as if God himself was my stage manager. Ding dong. The doorbell rang. Trevor and Serafina froze. They looked at each other. It was not a look of love. It was a look of pure, unfiltered panic. The trap was set. The guests of honor had just arrived. Serafina, you get the door, I said, my voice still frail. My wife and son-in-law just stared at each other, paralyzed. The bell rang again, longer, this time more insistent. Go on, Sarah, I said. It is my lawyer. We cannot be rude. Her movements were jerky, robotic. She stood up and walked to the door, smoothing her skirt, trying to compose herself. Trevor was on his feet, his eyes darting between me and the stack of papers on the table, as if he was calculating if he had time to snatch them and run. Nia just looked utterly confused. Dad, what is going on? Serafina opened the front door. Ben Carter was a tall man, thin as a rail, and always wore a perfectly tailored 3-piece suit. He stepped into my living room, his face impassive. He carried a briefcase that looked identical to Trevor's, but he was not alone. Behind him, 2 other men entered. They did not look like lawyers. They were younger fit and wore dark, functional suits. Their eyes were not friendly. They scanned the room, cataloging every person in it. One of them looked at Trevor, and his gaze lingered for just a second too long. Good morning, everyone, Ben Carter said, his voice cutting through the tension like a razor. I am Ben Carter, Mr. Turner's attorney. I believe I am here to review some documents. He then gestured to the 2 men behind him. These are my associates, Special Agent Riley from the IRS Criminal Investigation Division and Special Agent Cole from the Securities and Exchange Commission. The room went absolutely still. I watched Trevor. The blood drained from his face. It did not just get pale, it turned a waxy, sickly gray. A single bead of sweat broke free from his perfectly styled hairline and rolled down his temple. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. Serafina let out a small, strangled gasp. IRS, she whispered. SEC. Amos. What is this? She looked at me, her eyes wide with a new kind of terror. This is just a misunderstanding about the will. I pushed the wool blanket off my lap. It fell to the floor in a heap. I did not need it anymore. I planted my hands on the arms of my chair and I stood up. I did not stand like a frail, dizzy old man. I stood up straight, my back rigid, my shoulders squared. I had not stood like this in years. I felt the old power surge through me. I looked at my wife. I looked at my daughter. Then my eyes settled on Trevor Hayes. When I spoke, my voice was not the reedy, weak whisper they had been hearing. It was the voice that used to command an interrogation room. It was cold, it was clear, and it was filled with absolute authority. "There is no misunderstanding, Serafina," I said. I turned my full attention to Trevor. He was trembling, a fine, barely visible tremor in his hands. "You really thought I was a senile old fool, did not you, boy? You thought I was just a desk jockey. You thought I was so busy with my tomatoes I would not notice a snake in my own house." "Trevor," I said, taking a step toward him, "let's talk about wire fraud. Does that term ring a bell?" He recoiled. "I am talking about the illegal transfer of $150,000, the one you authorized 6 weeks ago from my daughter's trust fund, the one you made by forging her signature." Nia let out a sound like she had been punched in the gut. "What?" Her head snapped toward Trevor, her eyes wide with disbelief and horror. "What is he talking about, Trevor? What $150,000? I held up a hand to my daughter, my gaze never leaving Trevor's face. "I am not finished. You see, you were busy, Trevor. You were also busy in Atlantic City. Max sends his regards. You seem to have forgotten to declare about $200,000 in income from your associates at the Borgata. The IRS is very particular about that kind of thing. They get very upset about tax evasion on money you made from illegal gambling." Trevor was no longer gray, he was green. He looked like he was going to be sick right on my living room floor. The two agents, Riley and Cole, stepped forward. They moved in perfect, practiced unison. "Trevor Hayes," Agent Riley said, his voice flat and final. "You are under arrest for federal wire fraud, identity theft, and tax evasion. You have the right to remain silent." Agent Cole moved behind Trevor and in one smooth motion pulled Trevor's hands behind his back. The sharp metallic click of the handcuffs echoed through the room. It was the most satisfying sound I had ever heard. As the federal agents cuffed Trevor, Serafina's world, which had been perfectly balanced on a knife edge of greed and lies, finally shattered. "No," she shrieked. It was not a word, but a raw animal sound. She lunged forward, but not at the agents. She lunged at me. Amos, tell them they've made a mistake. Tell them you don't know these men." Her hands grabbed the front of my old robe, her perfectly manicured nails digging into the flannel. "Amos, please," she sobbed, her face twisting into a mask of pure theatrical panic. I just stared down at her, my face like stone. She saw the coldness in my eyes and immediately changed tactics. She let go of me and pointed a trembling, jeweled finger at Trevor, who was being held by the agents. "It was him. It was all him. I didn't know about any of this." She turned to Nia, her eyes wide and pleading. "Baby, you have to believe me. He lied to me. He told me he was investing the money. He told me your father was getting confused. I was just trying to help. I was trying to protect our family. Amos, I swear on Nia's life." I let her say it. I let her commit to the final desperate lie. I let her swear on our daughter's life. Then very slowly I held up my hand. I did not raise my voice. I spoke quietly and the entire room went dead silent. "Really, Sarah," I said. My voice was calm. "You didn't know anything. You were just trying to help." Yes, that's right," she stammered, grabbing onto the lie like a drowning woman. "I love you, Amos. I would never—" I reached into the pocket of my old flannel robe. The one she thought was the uniform of a feeble, simple-minded old man. I pulled out a small clear plastic evidence bag. Inside it were 13 small white pills, some of them crumbling from being damp. I tossed the bag onto the coffee table. It landed right next to Trevor's fraudulent power of attorney papers. It made almost no sound, but it hit the room like a sonic boom. Serafina stared at the bag. Her face went blank. Her breath caught in her throat. What is that?" she whispered. "You tell me, Sarah," I said. "You should recognize them. You handed one to me every single night for the last 2 weeks, telling me it was my blood pressure medication. You handed me one last night." I let that sink in. I let Nia, who was watching us pale as a ghost, understand exactly what I was saying. "I'm a creature of habit, Sarah." I continued, my voice flat. "But I'm not a fool. I kept every single one. I palmed them. I saved them. This one, I said, pointing to the first pill in the bag, is from the night you told me Trevor had a good idea. And this one, this crumbling one right here, this one is from last night. The one I spit into my hand when you turned your back to put the glass in the sink. I looked at her, my eyes as cold as the bottom of a river. I had my friend Mac run a lab test on the first pill you gave me. It's not my blood pressure medication, Sarah. It's a high-dose beta blocker compounded with a heavy anticoagulant. I paused, letting the clinical words hang in the air. The lab has a name for that combination, Sarah. They call it slow-motion death. They said it's designed to build up in my system. It's designed to make me confused, to make me weak, to make me dizzy, and then one day my heart would just stop, or I'd have a small stroke in my sleep and just bleed out internally. Murder disguised as old age. The pills you gave me, Sarah, the ones you brought to me with a glass of water and a loving smile. She began to shake her head, a violent, desperate motion. Her eyes were wide with animal panic. No, I didn't know. He must have swapped them, Trevor. He told me they were vitamins. He told me they would help you. He said you were sicker than you knew. That's a good story, a new voice said from the doorway. We all turned. Marcus Mac Reynolds stepped out of my kitchen where he had been waiting unseen for the entire confrontation. He was holding a small black digital audio recorder in his hand. It's a really good story, Mrs. Turner, Mac said, walking slowly into the living room. The problem is your own voice contradicts it. Seraphina's face crumpled. She knew. She knew what was coming. Mac held up the recorder so everyone could see it. Detective Turner is old school. He likes his physical evidence, he said, nodding toward the pills. I'm a technology guy. I planted a listening device in your son-in-law's living room 3 weeks ago. The same room where you two felt so comfortable where you thought no one was listening. Nia's hand flew to her mouth. Oh, God. Mac pressed the play button. The room, which had been filled with accusations and lies, was suddenly filled with their own calm, conspiratorial voices. First, Seraphina's voice, clear as a bell. I just wish he'd hurry up a little. He's 73, Trev. He's lived his life. He's living too long. Then Trevor's voice, if he won't hurry up, then we might have to accelerate the process. Then Seraphina's again. He'll never sign that. And finally, Trevor's the death sentence. He will, if he's not clear-headed enough to read it. Just up the dosage on his blood pressure medication. Mac pressed the button again. The recording stopped. The silence that filled the room was heavier, more final than any sound. It was the silence of guilt, captured and proven. Nia let out a low, agonizing moan. It was a sound of such profound, fundamental betrayal that I will hear it in my nightmares for the rest of my life. She looked at her mother, who was still standing frozen. Mom, she whispered, her voice breaking. Mom, you said you wanted him to die. That was the moment Seraphina Turner finally broke. It was not a cry, it was not a sob, it was not a faint, it was a howl, a deep, guttural sound from the very bottom of her soul. Her legs gave out from under her and she crumpled to the floor, a heap of expensive clothes and shattered, ugly lies. She clawed at her own hair, her face contorted. No, 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 she screamed, rocking back and forth on my living room floor. It was the sound of a person who had just watched her entire world, her past, her present, and her future, turn to ash in less than 5 minutes. 45 years of marriage. 45 years of shared meals, of sleeping in the same bed, of raising a child, of holding hands. All of it ended. Not with a whimper, but with the sharp, clear click of a play button. While Seraphina was howling on the floor, a new sound cut through the room. It was laughter. A high-pitched, hysterical, barking laugh. It was coming from Trevor. He was standing there in handcuffs, his expensive suit rumpled his face, a mask of sweat and terror. But he was laughing. He looked right at me, his eyes wide and manic, like a man who had just lost everything and finally found it funny. You got me, he giggled, the sound wet and broken. You really got me, the senile old man, the gardener. He threw his head back and laughed again, a sound completely unhinged. You bastard! You magnificent bastard! You knew! You knew all along, didn't you?" The room fell silent again, except for Trevor's wild breathing and Sarah's choked sobs from the floor. I took a step toward him. The agents tensed, but I just looked my son-in-law in the eye. My frail, confused act was gone. My voice was the one I used to use in small, windowless rooms in the middle of the night. "I knew from the day you first walked into my house 5 years ago," I said. My voice was low and it cut through the air. "You lied to Nia. You told her you had a finance degree from Wharton. I made one phone call. They never heard of you. I knew you were a liar from day one." Trevor's laughter died in his throat. His eyes widened in genuine shock. "You think I'm a simple old man?" I continued, walking slowly toward him. "You think I pushed paper for the sanitation department? You are not very good at your job, Trevor. You never even ran a background check on your own father-in-law." I leaned in close so only he and the agents could hear me clearly. "My name is Detective Amos Turner, 1st grade, NYPD Financial Crimes, retired. I have put away con men who were smarter than you before you were even born. I have taken down multi-million-dollar rings that could have bought and sold you 1,000 times over. I've stared down men who have actually killed people, not just planned to poison them like a coward. You are just a low-level gambler who got in too deep. You are not a shark, Trevor. You are just a bottom feeder." I saw the light die in his eyes, the realization, the finality of it all. He was not just caught. He was outclassed. And that is when the rat cornered and trapped did the only thing it had left to do. It decided to bite everyone else in the cage. His face twisted from mania into something else, something pure reptilian and venomous. He was going down, but he was going to make sure he burned the whole house down with him. His eyes swiveled from me to the crumpled, weeping figure of my wife on the floor. "Sarah!" he screamed. His voice was a raw shriek. "Sarah, you stupid old fool, get up. Stop crying. Tell him the truth." Serafina looked up, her face streaked with mascara and tears. "What are you talking about? Tell him!" Trevor bellowed, struggling against the cuffs. "You want to pin this all on me. You want to pretend you were just trying to help. Tell him who really wanted the money. Tell him who was sick of living in that tiny house in Queens. Tell him who complained every single day that he was a cheap old man." "Shut up, Trevor!" Serafina screamed, scrambling to her knees. "Shut up! You liar! Liar!" Trevor laughed that wild, crazy sound again. "I'm the liar. You were the one who came to me. You were the one who said you deserved a better life, that you deserved his money. No, it was you. You said you could triple the money. You said we could be rich." "Oh, we're not done, Sarah," Trevor sneered. "We are going to be honest now. We are going to tell Amos everything. Tell him how you really felt about him. Tell him what you told me about him in private. Tell him, Sarah. Tell him you were sleeping with me." Nia, who had been standing by the wall frozen, let out a sound, a small dry gasp. It was the sound of a heart stopping. "Ba tan wai tin voitoi." Trevor screamed again, this time in English, for the agents, for Nia, for the whole world. For the last 6 months, this was her idea. She hated him. She wanted his money. She wanted that $8 million. Serafina's face was no longer human. It was a mask of pure primal rage. She flew up from the floor and lunged at him. "You bastard!" she shrieked, her voice cracking. "You said you loved me. You said he was a fool. You said you were going to leave Nia and we were going to be together." "Love you," Trevor spat back, recoiling from her. "You old deluded hag. I was using you just like you were using me. You thought I was your ticket to his $8 million. I just needed to pay my $200,000 debt. I was going to take your cut and disappear. I would have left you to rot with your senile husband." It was all out. The raw, unfiltered, venomous truth. Every hidden agenda, every betrayal. He was using her to pay his gambling debts. She was using him to get my entire $8 million fortune, which she had only just learned about. They were not partners. They were two snakes in a pit, each one trying to eat the other. They kept screaming. He called her a greedy old witch. She called him a lying two-bit con man. The agents and Ben Carter just watched. Mac just kept his recorder up, capturing every word. But I was not watching them. I was watching my daughter. Nia was still standing by the wall. She had not moved. Her hand was still at her mouth. She had heard everything. Her husband's theft, her mother's greed, her father's murder plot. And now the final ugliest piece. The affair. Her husband and her mother. She looked at her mother, who was still screaming at Trevor. She looked at Trevor, who was spitting insults back at her mother. She looked at me, her father, the man who had exposed it all. Then very slowly, like an old building collapsing in on itself, her knees buckled. She did not faint, she just folded. She slid down the wall until she was sitting on the floor, her arms wrapped around her legs, her head bowed. She did not make a sound. She did not cry. She just sat there completely, utterly, and finally broken. The whole world had been a lie. As Trevor and Serafina's venomous accusations echoed in the living room, the screaming, the confessions, the raw, unfiltered truth of their affair, the front door, which Ben Carter had left ajar, was pushed open. 2 uniformed officers from the local precinct stepped inside. They were not the feds. They were the ones Mac had called. Their faces were grim. The room, which had been loud with the sounds of rage, suddenly fell deathly silent. Even Trevor and Sarah stopped screaming, their mouths hanging open, their eyes wide with the shock of this new final intrusion. The senior officer, a man with graying hair and a weary face, surveyed the scene. He saw Trevor cuffed and held by the federal agents. He saw me standing in my old robe, and he saw Serafina kneeling on the floor, her face a mask of tears, mascara, and pure animalistic hatred. He did not need to ask any questions. He walked past Trevor, past me, and stopped directly in front of my wife. "Serafina Turner," he said. His voice was not loud, but it filled the entire house. "You are under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder in the first degree." But as the officer spoke, I was not watching my wife. I was watching my daughter. Naya was still standing by the wall where she had been since the beginning. Her hand was pressed against her mouth, her eyes wide and blank as if she was watching a movie of someone else's life. She had been silent. She had been frozen. She had withstood the talk of money. She had withstood the talk of the poisoning. But it was Trevor's final brutal confession. She was sleeping with me. Those words, those 5 words were the ones that finally, irrevocably broke her. I watched as the understanding settled into her face. This was not just a plot about inheritance. It was not just about greed. It was a deep, personal, and grotesque betrayal. Her husband, her mother, the 2 people she loved and trusted most in the world besides me, were partners in everything. She made a sound. It was not a cry. It was a small, dry, choking sound, like all the air had been punched out of her lungs. Her hand dropped from her mouth. Her eyes, which had been wide with shock, suddenly became empty, vacant. The light just went out. "Mom," she whispered. Her voice was thin like a dry leaf. "Mom, you and Trevor." Serafina, who was still on her knees, heard her daughter's voice. She turned her face, a desperate, ruined mess. "Nia, baby, it's not. It wasn't. He seduced me. He lied. He said you and he were having problems. He said he loved me." Nia just stared. She did not cry. She did not scream. She just stared at this strange, monstrous woman on the floor who was her mother. You were with my husband," Nia said. It was not a question. It was a statement of fact, a fact so heavy it seemed to be crushing her. "Let's go, ma'am," the officer said, pulling Serafina to her feet by the arm. The moment the officer's hand touched her, Serafina's panic, the real primal panic of a trapped animal, erupted. "No!" she shrieked, ripping her arm away. "Get your hands off me! You can't do this!" She was not looking at me anymore. She was looking at Nia. "Nia, tell them it's a mistake. Tell them I'm your mother, Nia. Help me." The second officer grabbed her other arm. They were strong, efficient. They spun her around and pushed her hands behind her back. The sharp metallic click of the second pair of handcuffs echoed in the room. "You're all lying," she screamed, her voice cracking into a raw, ugly sound. "It was Amos. He planned all of this. He's the one with the money. He's the liar. He's been lying for years. Trevor, tell them. Tell them he's the one." Trevor just laughed, a short, bitter, empty laugh from across the room. "It's over, Sarah. Just shut up." "No, I won't shut up," she wailed as the officers began to physically pull her toward the door. She was fighting them, twisting in their grip. "Naya, he's a con man. He's lying. I would never. Baby, please. Let's go," the federal agent said, pulling Trevor toward the door as well. The room was suddenly full of movement, 2 federal agents leading a silent, defeated Trevor. Two local officers dragging a screaming, struggling Serafina. Ben Carter and Mac stood back, their faces grim, their job done. They were led out the front door. The federal agent's black sedan was waiting. A marked police car was right behind it. I heard my screen door slam shut. I heard car doors opening and closing. I heard Serafina's voice still screaming, "You'll regret this. You'll all regret this. He's the liar. Amos is the liar." And then the sound of engines. The cars pulled away. The front door was still open, letting in the bright, cold, indifferent Friday air. The silence that fell was not just silence. It was a vacuum. It was the sound of 45 years of a life, a marriage, a family being sucked out of the room, leaving nothing behind but the smell of old wood dust motes dancing in the sun and the wreckage. It was all gone. All the noise, all the rage, all the lies, all the people. Just gone. Then I heard a sound, a small, terrible, rhythmic sound. The sound of someone hitting their head against a wall. Thud, thud, thud. I turned. I had almost forgotten. Nia, my daughter. She was in the same spot, huddled against the far wall. She was rocking back and forth, her head rhythmically hitting the drywall. She was not crying. She was just rocking, making a low, continuous, animalistic sound, a moan from a place deeper than tears. She was shattered. What do you say? What words do you use to fix something that is this broken? There are no words. I walked over to her slowly. I did not try to pull her up. I did not tell her it would be okay, because it would not be. Not for a very, very long time. I sat down, right there on the floor next to her. My old 74-year-old bones creaked and groaned in protest, but I sat down. I put my arm around her shaking shoulders. She did not react at first. She just kept rocking, making that lost, broken sound. Then slowly she leaned her head against my chest, and the small, quiet sounds turned into the raw, agonizing, body-racking sobs of a child who has just found out that the world is full of darkness. I did not say a word. I just held her. I held my daughter. And we sat there together in the wreckage. The week after the arrests was a blur. It was a strange, hollow vortex of silence. The house was too quiet. The reporters eventually stopped knocking. The neighbors stopped peering through their curtains. It was just over. My lawyer, Ben Carter, came by the following Monday. He was all business, his face grim. He set his briefcase on my coffee table, the same table where Trevor had laid out his fraudulent papers, and opened it. "Amos," he said, "we need to go over the damage. Now that the immediate threat is gone, we have to see what kind of mess Trevor and Serafina left behind." I nodded. I knew it was coming. "Just give it to me straight, Ben." Nia was there. She had been staying with me, sleeping in her old childhood bedroom. She was a ghost. She just sat in the armchair by the window, staring out at my tomato plants, her face pale and empty. She had not really spoken in days. Ben laid out the papers. "All right, we knew about the $150,000 he took from Nia's trust fund. That's a federal matter, and it's part of his criminal case. The money is gone, but it's on his record." "I don't care about the money," Nia whispered from the chair, her first words all morning. Ben looked at her, then back at me. His expression was pained. "I wish that was all, Nia, but it's not." He slid another document across the table. It was a letter. From a bank I did not recognize. It was addressed to Nia and Amos Turner. "What's this?" I asked, picking it up. Trevor was desperate, Amos, more desperate than we knew. He was not just stealing from the trust, he was leveraging your assets. "When you and Nia bought that house, you co-signed the mortgage, correct?" "Yes," I said. "A standard fatherly gesture. It helped her get a better interest rate." "He used that," Ben said flatly. "He used your co-signature. 2 months ago he took out a second mortgage on the property, a home equity line of credit, for $100,000. I felt the blood drain from my face. "He mortgaged her house. He forged your signature, Amos, and he forged Nia's. He told the bank it was for home improvements. He maxed out the line of credit the same day. The money was wired to an offshore account in the Caymans. It's gone. Poof." Ben took a deep breath. "The bank has not received a payment on that second mortgage in 60 days. They just sent this. It's a notice of default. They are beginning foreclosure proceedings." I heard a small, sharp sound. A gasp. Nia was on her feet. "Foreclosure," she whispered. Her voice was thin like a dry leaf. "What does that mean?" It means, Ben said gently, that the bank is going to take your house, Naya, unless this loan is paid in full immediately. Nia just stood there staring at the letter. My house, she said. She looked around my living room as if seeing it for the first time, as if realizing it was the only safe place she had left. He took my house too. She started to pace, her hands fluttering at her throat. I have nothing, she said, her voice rising with a terrible hysterical panic. I have nothing, Dad. She looked at me, her eyes finally full of the pure, unadulterated terror I had been waiting to see. The denial was gone. The anger was gone. All that was left was the raw, gaping wound. I lost my husband, she said, ticking the items off on her fingers as if she were in shock. He's a monster. He's in jail. I lost my mother. She's in jail. Her voice broke. I lost all my money. He stole it. He stole my trust fund. And now I'm losing my home. She slid down the wall, just like she had during the arrest. She crumpled to the floor, pulling her knees to her chest, and she began to sob. Not the quiet, broken sounds from before, but the loud, agonizing, gut-wrenching sobs of a person who has truly hit rock bottom. I've lost everything, she wailed into her knees. It's all gone. He took everything from me. I have nothing left. Ben Carter looked at me, his expression full of pity, ready for me to go and comfort her, to wrap my arms around her and tell her it would be okay. I did not. I stayed in my chair. I watched her cry for a full minute. I let the reality of her new life wash over her. Then I spoke. My voice was not gentle. It was not angry. It was just quiet. No, I said. Naya's sobs hitched. She looked up, her face a mess of tears and confusion. No. What? You have not lost everything, I said, leaning forward. You have not lost me, and you are not losing your house. She just stared at me. Dad, you don't understand. The bank, the letter, $100,000. I understand perfectly, I said. The bank wants $100,000. Tomorrow I will go to that bank and I will write them a check for $100,000. The loan will be paid. You are not losing your house. I expected relief, but what I saw was something different. A wave of profound, burning shame washed over her face. She shook her head, burying her face in her hands. No, she mumbled, her voice thick. No, I can't. I can't take any more from you. I can't. She looked up at me, her eyes red and raw. This is my fault, Dad. All of it. This is my fault. You tried to warn me. You sat in that diner. You begged me to listen. And what did I do? I called you a jealous old man. I said I trusted him more than you. Her voice cracked and she choked on a sob. How can you even look at me? How can you offer to pay my debts after I spat in your face? I let her words hang in the air. I let her feel the full weight of them. Then I leaned forward, resting my arms on my knees. You are right about one thing, I said, my voice hard and steady. This is your fault. You were blind. You were naive. You were a fool. You chose to believe the shiny new exciting lie over the old steady boring truth. You made a terrible life-altering mistake. She flinched as if I had struck her, but she did not deny it. She knew it was true. But I am not paying this money for the woman who sat in that diner, I continued. I am paying it for the little girl I used to push on the swings in the park. I am paying it for the daughter I know is still in there, buried under all this wreckage. I stood up and walked over to the window, looking out at my garden. But make no mistake, Nia, this is the last check I ever write for you. This is the last time I save you, because I am not giving you this money. I am investing it. I am investing $100,000 in your education. I heard her sniffle. My education? Dad, I'm a nurse practitioner. I have a degree. I turned to face her. No, your real education. The one that starts today. I am going to save your house. And in return, you are going to sit at that kitchen table with me every single night for the next year. And I am going to teach you everything I know. I am going to teach you what a shell corporation is. I am going to teach you how to read a balance sheet. I am going to teach you how to read a bank statement so you know when someone is stealing from you. I am going to teach you how to spot a con man like Trevor Hayes before he even opens his damn mouth. I walked over and stood in front of her. She was still on the floor looking up at me. I am done protecting you, Nia, I said. Protecting you is what made you weak. It is what made you a target. From now on, you learn to save yourself. Our first lesson is tomorrow, 9 o'clock, sharp. Bring a notebook. You have a lot to learn. Naya stared at me. Her tears had stopped. Her breathing was still shaky, but her eyes, for the first time in weeks, there was a flicker of something new. Not fear, not shame, understanding. She slowly, painfully got to her feet. She stood in front of me, a grown woman, broken but not defeated. She nodded just once. "Okay, Dad," she whispered. "Okay." 6 months. It took 6 months for the wheels of justice to grind their way to this day. I sat in the front row of the courtroom. It was not like on television. There were no dramatic cameras, just fluorescent lights that hummed and the smell of old wood and stale coffee. I wore my best suit, the one I had not worn since I retired. It felt strange, like a costume from a different life. Nia sat beside me. Her hand was in mine and it was ice cold. She had not slept in 2 days. Across the room I saw them. Trevor and Serafina. They were not seated together. The court had designated them as hostile co-defendants. They had not seen each other since that day in my living room. Trevor looked thin, his expensive suit hanging off him. His arrogance was gone, replaced by a twitchy, rat-like fear. Serafina looked older than me. Her hair was brittle, her face a mask of bitter resentment. The love, the passion, the conspiracy that had bound them together was gone. Now they were just two animals in a cage ready to tear each other apart to get one more day of freedom. Trevor's lawyer, a slick man in a sharkskin suit, went first. He painted Trevor as a victim. A desperate man in debt, yes, but one who was preyed upon. "This was not Trevor Hayes's plan," he boomed, pointing at my wife. "This was the plan of a greedy, bitter woman, a modern-day Lady Macbeth who was so consumed by jealousy of her husband's secret wealth that she seduced this younger man, manipulated him, and pushed him toward this terrible act." Then Sarah's lawyer, a tired-looking public defender, stood up. "My client, Serafina Turner," she said quietly, "was a victim for 45 years, a victim of emotional neglect, a victim of financial deceit, and finally a victim of a sophisticated con man, Trevor Hayes, who saw her vulnerability and exploited it, turning her against the husband she loved." It was disgusting. They were both trying to wash the blood off their hands by wiping it on the other. Then the prosecutor called my name. "The prosecution calls Amos Turner." I stood up. I let go of Naya's hand. I walked to the stand, my steps steady. I did not look at them. I looked at the jury. 12 ordinary people. I swore the oath. The prosecutor began. "Mr. Turner, can you please describe your 45-year marriage to the defendant, Serafina Turner?" I took a breath. It was quiet. I thought it was good. I thought we were a team. I provided for my family. I loved my wife. I loved my daughter. I worked hard at my job for the city. I came home. I planted my garden. I thought we were happy. "And your son-in-law, Mr. Hayes. I never trusted him. My instincts told me he was a liar. But my daughter loved him, so I kept my mouth shut. That was my mistake." The prosecutor led me through it all. The day I saw the car. The conversation I overheard. The pills I palmed. The lab reports from Mac. The financial records of the stolen money. I answered every question with facts. Cold, hard, simple facts. Then Trevor's lawyer stood up for cross-examination. "Mr. Turner, is it not true that you are an incredibly wealthy man, an $8 million man?" "That is correct." "And is it not true you hid this wealth from your wife for decades?" "That is also correct." "So you lied to her. You lied to her every single day for decades. You pretended to be a simple poor man." "I did not pretend to be poor," I said, my voice even. "I lived simply. There is a difference." "A difference your wife did not appreciate. Is it not true that your deception, your lies, pushed her into this state of desperation?" I looked at the lawyer, then I turned and looked at the jury. I looked at those 12 faces. "I hid my money for one reason." I said, my voice clear and strong. "I did not hide it from her. I hid it for her and for my daughter. I wanted them to be safe. I wanted to know that the people in my life were there for me, Amos the man, not for the $8 million in my bank account." I paused. I wanted to see if 45 years of love, 45 years of shared history of raising a child, I wanted to see if that was worth more than money. I turned my head just slightly and looked at Sarah. Her eyes met mine. They were full of hate. "I got my answer," I said. "It was not." The next day they called Nia. She was terrified. Her hands were shaking, but she walked to that stand. She sat down. When the prosecutor asked her to identify the defendants, she hesitated. She looked at Trevor. Then she looked at her mother. "That's Trevor Hayes," she said, her voice a whisper. "He was my husband." Then she looked at Sarah. "And that is Serafina Turner. She is my mother." Her testimony was devastating, not because she was angry, but because she was so broken. She recounted the lunch we had. She told the jury what she said to me. "I told him," she said, her voice cracking. "I told my father that I trusted my husband more than him. I called him a liar. I called him jealous." She looked at Trevor. "And all the while he had already stolen my inheritance. He had stolen my future." Then she looked at her mother. "And she sat at my table at Thanksgiving knowing this. She listened to him plan. She helped him. They used me. They used my love, and they used it to try and destroy my father." She finally broke down, sobbing into her hands. "I trusted them," she cried. "I trusted them both, and they were going to kill him." The prosecutor's closing argument was short and brutal. He did not need to yell. The evidence screamed for him. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, "the defense wants you to believe this is complicated, that this is about manipulation or desperation or a marriage gone wrong. It is not. It is simple. This is about greed." He pointed to Trevor. "A man who stole from his own wife." He pointed to Serafina. "A woman who plotted to poison her own husband." "They were not victims," he said. "They were partners. Their motive was $8 million. Their weapon was a little white pill, and their mistake was underestimating the man they were trying to kill." He sat down. The silence in the courtroom was absolute. We did not have to wait long. The jury was out for less than 3 hours. When the buzzer sounded, my heart, which I thought had turned to stone, gave a hard, painful jolt. Nia's hand, which was gripping mine, became instantly cold and damp. "They're back," she whispered. They filed back into the jury box. 12 normal people who had been forced to look into the abyss of my family's life. They looked tired. They looked sad. And not a single one of them would look at the defense table. My lawyer, Ben Carter, leaned over and whispered in my ear, "That's it, Amos. They're not looking at them." The courtroom was so quiet I could hear the hum of the fluorescent lights overhead. The judge asked the foreman to stand. "Mr. Foreman, on the charges of federal wire fraud and tax evasion against the defendant Trevor Hayes, how do you find—" The foreman, a middle-aged man in a cheap suit, held up a piece of paper. His voice was steady. "On all counts, we find the defendant Trevor Hayes guilty." A small gasp escaped from Nia. Trevor Hayes just slumped in his chair as if his strings had been cut. "And on the charge of conspiracy to commit murder in the first degree against the defendant Trevor Hayes, how do you find guilty?" The judge turned to my wife. "And on the charge of conspiracy to commit murder in the first degree against the defendant Serafina Turner, how do you find guilty?" Serafina did not cry. She did not move. She just stared straight ahead, her face perfectly, terrifyingly blank. The judge was not inclined to wait for a lengthy sentencing hearing. The evidence was too clear. The crimes, he said, were too personal. He cleared his throat and looked down at the 2 people who had once been my family. "Mr. Hayes," he said, his voice hard, "you are a predator. You preyed on a woman who trusted you. You stole from her. You preyed on your wife, and you preyed on her father. You are a con man, a thief, and a coward. For the charges of wire fraud and tax evasion, this court sentences you to 10 years. For the charge of conspiracy to commit murder, this court sentences you to an additional 10 years to be served consecutively. That is 20 years in a federal prison." Trevor just stared at his cuffed hands on the table. 20 years. He would be an old man when he got out. The judge then turned to my wife. His face, if possible, grew even harder. "Mrs. Turner," he said, and the disappointment in his voice was palpable. "You had a life. You had a family. You had a husband who, by his own admission, loved you. And you threw it all away. You conspired to poison your husband of 45 years. You did this not out of passion, not out of fear, but out of simple, calculated greed. It is a betrayal I find almost impossible to comprehend." Serafina still did not move. "For the charge of conspiracy to commit murder, this court sentences you to 15 years in prison." 15 years. I felt Nia's body shake next to me in a silent sob. The judge banged his gavel. "Court is adjourned." It was over. Chaos erupted. People started talking. Lawyers shuffled papers. The judge stood up and left. 2 uniformed officers moved toward Serafina to lead her out. They pulled her to her feet. As they led her past my aisle, she stopped. She stopped, and she turned. She looked right at me. Her face was no longer blank. It was a mask of pure, unadulterated hatred. Her eyes were black, bottomless pits of venom. "You," she hissed. Her voice was a low, rasping sound that carried across the courtroom. "You did this. You destroyed me. You destroyed our family." Nia flinched, but I did not. I just looked at the woman I had spent my life with. I did not feel anger. I did not feel hate. I just felt an immense cold and bottomless sadness. I shook my head slowly. "You destroyed yourself, Sarah," I said, my voice just loud enough for her to hear. "You did this. You had a home. You had a daughter. You had 45 years of my life. You had everything." I leaned forward just an inch. "You just could not see it." Her face twisted and she opened her mouth to scream, but the officer tugged her arm. "Let's go, ma'am." And they pulled her away. They pulled my wife of 45 years out of the courtroom to go to prison. I watched her go. I watched the door swing shut behind her. I felt a hand on my shoulder. It was Ben Carter. "It's done, Amos." I nodded. I reached down and took Nia's hand. It was still ice cold. "Come on, Pumpkin," I said softly. "Let's go home." I helped her to her feet. She was like a sleepwalker, her eyes vacant, her body moving without life. I put my arm around her shoulder and steered her toward the exit. The moment we pushed open the heavy courtroom doors, it hit us. A wall of light, a cacophony of sound. Flashbulbs exploded in our faces so bright they were blinding. A forest of microphones was shoved toward my face. Reporters, dozens of them, were all shouting at once. "Mr. Turner, how does it feel? Nia, what do you have to say to your mother? Are you happy with the verdict? Mr. Turner, was it worth it?" Nia recoiled from the noise, her hands flying up to cover her ears. She was trembling violently. The questions were like blows, physical and brutal. I felt that old, cold anger rise in me one last time. I did not say a word. I wrapped my arm tighter around my daughter. I pulled her head down onto my shoulder, shielding her face from the cameras. I put my other hand up like a shield. "Back off." I growled, my voice low and dangerous, and for a second, the detective was back. The reporters, sensing they had pushed too far, instinctively took a step back. I did not stop. I did not answer a single question. I just moved. I was a 73-year-old man, but I was a wall of stone. I pushed through the cameras, I pushed through the microphones, I pushed through the chaos. I shielded my daughter with my own body, protecting her from the mess my family had become. I guided her through the storm, out of the dark courthouse, and into the bright, cold, unforgiving daylight of our new life. It has been 1 year since the gavel fell. 1 year since the sound of handcuffs clicking shut ended a 45-year marriage. The house is different now. The silence is different. It is not the hollow, waiting silence of a trap. It is the full, warm silence of peace. The living room, which was the stage for our family's final ugly collapse, has been repainted. We tore out the old carpet, the one Sarah had crumpled onto, and sanded the original hardwood floors underneath. They shine now. The smell of lemon oil and fresh paint has replaced the old ghosts. I am 74 years old. I spend most of my days in the garden just as I always did. But now, I am not hiding. I am just living. The old F-150 is still in the driveway. Some things do not need to change. Nia is here. She moved in with me after the trial. She could not bear to stay in her own house, the one Trevor had poisoned with his lies and his crimes. We sold it 6 months ago. We paid the bank and we walked away. Nia is different too. The ghost who sat on my floor, shattered into a million pieces, is gone. It took a long time. There were months of silence, months of therapy, months of her just sitting in the garden with me, watching the tomatoes grow, learning to breathe again. But my daughter, the one I knew, was buried deep inside. She is a fighter. Her divorce from Trevor was finalized 4 months ago. She did not ask for a thing. She just wanted her name back. She is Nia Turner again. She is still a nurse practitioner, but she cut back her hours at the hospital. She is doing something else now. She is in school, not nursing school. She is taking night classes at the local college. I did not ask her to. She just did it. Last night I came into the kitchen and she was at the old oak table, the one she grew up doing her homework on. But now it was covered in textbooks. I looked over her shoulder. Introduction to Corporate Finance, Forensic Accounting 101, Principles of Asset Management. She looked up at me, her eyes clear. They were not scared anymore. They were focused. "Dad," she said, closing her textbook, "I have been thinking. That trust fund, the one he stole from, there is still about $350,000 left in it." I nodded. "That's right. Ben Carter has it locked down tight." "I want to manage it," she said. It was not a question. It was a statement. "I do not mean I want the money. I mean, I want to understand it. I want to know where it is. I want to know how it works. I spent my whole life being blind. I spent my whole life letting men like Trevor handle everything because I thought I was not smart enough. I am done being blind, Dad. I want to learn. I want you to teach me." I looked at my daughter who was poring over accounting books at 10 o'clock at night, the daughter who had been betrayed by everyone she loved but who chose to get smarter, not bitter. I felt a swell of pride so powerful it almost knocked me off my feet. This was the woman I knew she could be. "The trust fund is a good place to start," I said. My voice was a little rough. I cleared my throat. "It's a simple portfolio, but if you are serious about this, there is something else. Something more." She frowned. "More? What do you mean?" I went to my office, the small room where I kept my gardening files. In the back of my old steel filing cabinet behind the warranties for a lawnmower I had not owned in 10 years, there was a false panel. Behind it, a safe. I spun the combination. I pulled out a single, thick black ledger, the kind you do not see anymore. I walked back to the kitchen and placed it on the table on top of her college textbooks. "What is this?" she asked. "Your old cases." "No," I said. "This is my case. This is me. The real me." She opened it. Her eyes scanned the first page, and the second, and the third. She saw the account numbers, the offshore holdings, the stock tickers, the corporate consulting fees. She saw the transfers, the investments, the growth. She saw the final bottom line number, $8,475,000. She looked up at me, her face pale. "Dad, this is..." "That is my life's work, Nia," I said. "Not the desk job, not the garden. This is what I did, and this is my real responsibility. $8 million is a heavy weight. I want you to learn how to carry it. I want you to learn how it works. I want to teach you how to protect it. Not just from men like Trevor, but from the world." Nia closed the ledger. She did not look impressed. She looked sad. She put her hand on the old leather cover. She knew about this, did not she, at the end? I knew who she meant. Serafina. "Yes. I told Ben to make sure her lawyer knew the full amount during the plea negotiations. I wanted her to know exactly what she had thrown away." Nia was quiet for a long time. "I got a letter from her," she whispered, not looking at me. "From the prison. It came last week." I waited. I did not tell her to read it or to burn it. "I have not opened it," she said, her voice small. I do not know if I can. Dad, do you think she ever loved me? Or was I just part of it?" I sat down across from her. I reached out and put my old scarred hand over hers. "Nia," I said, "the woman who raised you, the woman who kissed your scraped knees and made you oatmeal on cold mornings, that woman loved you, I believe that. I believe, but somewhere along the way, she got lost. She started listening to the worst parts of herself. She let the greed, the envy, and the bitterness eat her alive. She let that woman poison the mother you knew." A single tear rolled down Nia's cheek and dropped onto the ledger. "What she did, that is her burden to carry. Not yours," I said firmly. "Her crimes are not your guilt. Her choices are not your shame. You are my daughter. You are a Turner. And we look forward. We do not look back." Nia took a shaky breath. She wiped her face. She nodded. Okay, Dad." She opened the ledger again, and next to it she opened her college notebook. "All right," she said, her voice stronger. "Lesson 1. What is a diversified equity portfolio?" I smiled. I pulled up a chair. "It's simple," I began. "You never put all your eggs in one basket, especially when the people you trust are the ones watching the basket." We sat there for hours under the warm light of the kitchen, the past finally behind us, the future spread out on the table. The next morning I was in the garden tying up my tomato plants when Nia came out onto the porch. She was holding a roll of blueprints. "The architect just dropped these off," she said. I came over wiping the dirt from my hands. We unrolled the plans on the old porch table. It was the design for the new wing of the house, a new office for her, a bigger modern kitchen for me, a small library. We were rebuilding. Not just a house, we were building a new foundation, one built on truth, one built on respect, one built on honesty. I looked at my daughter, my real legacy. She was not just safe, she was strong. And for the first time in my entire 74 years, Amos Turner, the detective, the gardener, the father, I was finally truly at peace. This story teaches us a powerful and bitter lesson. Greed is a poison that blinds you. Serafina and Trevor were so focused on the money they thought I had, they never bothered to see the man I actually was. They underestimated the quiet gardener, forgetting that the most dangerous predators are the ones who know how to wait. They believed that wealth is about flashy cars and big promises. But real power is quiet. Real strength is built in silence. They learned the hard way that when you try to steal a person's future, you will always end up losing your own. Have you ever had to deal with a family member who was blinded by greed? Share your story with me in the comments below.